Most slave auctions took place once Africans arrived in America from slave ships. They would be auctioned to the highest bidder during a slave auction. Auctions were usually advertised with printed posters and/or in newspaper ads that included the printed names of the enslaved, their ages, and any qualifications or special skills they had. By 1850, the average cost of a slave was $800, though skilled slaves in field hands could be sold for up to $2,000. In preparation to be sold, the enslaved were washed, shaved, and rubbed with palm oil to hide sores and wounds. Once they arrived at the auction site, slaves were examined with little care for their lives, as they were usually ripped apart from their family members. The inspector will pull the mouths and eyes open, inspect ears, noses, teeth, and other body parts, looking for injury and sickness, as well as muscles and proper development. Once inspected, each person, one by one, will have their turn on the auction block. The auctioneer would then describe the slave to those interested, and the bidding would begin. Finally, each slave will watch in horror while their loved one would be sold to strangers who would take them to a new place where they would be forced to work without pay for a lifetime and probably never see their mother, father, or families again. And this was only the beginning.
In 1865, following the Union victory in the Civil War, the 13th Amendment was passed, legally ending slavery in the United States. Millions of men, women, and children were now freed from bondage. While the experiences of freed slaves varied, it is believed that the greatest priority for many was to reunite with separated family members and loved ones. Despite their freedom, former slaves faced multiple challenges. Most were illiterate and nearly all were penniless and did not own property. While the U.S. government initially supported these freed men through schools and training and provided protection, this support soon disappeared within approximately 10 years of the passage of the 13th Amendment. The era of Jim Crow segregation and the Ku Klux Klan took hold throughout the South. Additionally, most freedmen that did not own land or were denied a formal education were forced into an abusive system known as sharecropping, in which they spent the remainder of their lives working to pay off unreasonable debts from landowners. Also significant was the clause within the 13th Amendment that stated a system of slavery or involuntary servitude could still exist within the United States as a punishment for crime. This loophole was immediately exploited, and African Americans were arrested en masse for minor crimes like loitering or vagrancy. Now criminals, they were stripped of their freedom and either incarcerated in prisons or forced to provide free labor for the government. As a result of these abuses, former slaves may have been considered legally free, but they and their descendants were trapped in an unjust and oppressive system that resembled slavery in many ways.
Although both slavery and sharecropping have been abolished, the U.S. now maintains a system of involuntary servitude through mass incarceration. Today, the U.S. has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's prisoners. In the past 40 years, the prison population has exploded, growing from 300,000 to 2.3 million. While this dramatic increase is the result of several factors, one likely cause is money. For example, congressmen and women partner with organizations like ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council, to introduce bills that make it easier to imprison non-violent criminals for lengthy terms. This benefits private prison complexes such as Corrections Corporation of America, CCA, which profit off of their inmates. The CCA and government prisons then use nearly free prison labor to make products for many large retailers, including Walmart, Whole Foods, and McDonald's. With more people in prison, more products are produced for less money, resulting in greater profits for the leaders of these companies and the private prisons. As a result, young people of color are overrepresented in private prisons where they are 3 times more likely to return to prison, allowing private corporations to make more money.
Every day, Black Americans, men in particular, are represented in the media as thugs and criminals. This depiction, which traces back to slavery and Jim Crow segregation, ties directly to the classroom and leads to the stereotyping of children of color, based on financial status, disabilities, test scores, and class behavior. Children of color are more likely to be misdiagnosed as requiring special education services and deserving punitive punishment such as suspension and expulsion at much higher rates, 4 times higher to be precise. These stereotypical depictions continue to harm Black Americans in adolescence and adulthood. One example is the significant racial disparities that exist in the justice system.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
Despite the fact that whites use illegal drugs at similar rates than blacks and sell illegal drugs at similar or greater rates, police arrest Black Americans for drug crimes at twice the rate of whites. Additionally, studies show that Black Americans are more likely to be excluded from juries because of their race and are more likely to serve longer sentences than white Americans for the same offense. Today, Black men make up 6.5% of the U.S. population, but 40% of the prison population. In fact, 1 out of every 3 Black men born today will be incarcerated at some point in their life. Because of this, families are torn apart and are likely to recycle the abuse, leading to poor academic performance, higher dropout rates, and increased incarceration.
A long way from home.
This era of hyper-incarceration is a crisis facing modern America. Not only does it annually cost the government billions of dollars and misuse police and public safety resources, it disproportionately targets persons of color, rips apart families, and fractures communities. For too many Americans, crime and punishment may seem like a simple issue. Suspects are arrested and serve time for their actions. However, as multiple facts and data points prove, the issue is far more complex than it appears on the surface, and its roots trace back to deep-seated prejudices and biases in both our legal system and social conscience. To illustrate this point, consider this one example. In 2015, whites searched without consent were found to be carrying contraband at nearly 2 times the rate as blacks who were searched without consent. However, police are 3 times as likely to search the cars of stopped black drivers as stopped white drivers.
Additionally, black drivers are also more likely to be pulled over and less likely to receive a reason for being stopped. These actions have the potential to not only impact how we see ourselves and others, but how we interact. While this crisis places a stain on our society and prevents us from growing as a country, it also presents an opportunity. We are fighting a legacy that cannot be overturned by any single individual or leader. In addition, by acknowledging our past and the impact of our deep-rooted bias, those individuals that have long written the laws and established the dominant narrative have the chance to lead America towards a new horizon that will be fairer, more inclusive, and stronger. Our students will be tomorrow's leaders, and they must carry the burden of not just improving their own lives through education and financial gain, but empowering their community through activism and by raising social consciousness.